If you are an entrepreneur and you love paying legal fees and you love paying court fees and you love everybody knowing your business, because once this gets to court, it's public, then don't plan. Don't write a will. Don't do anything. And all of a sudden, your whole life will be a lie, because everything that you've built up and the control and the imagination and making the right decisions will all go down a drain because of not having the courage to have a conversation.
Welcome to Beyond Succession, a podcast series within the Bennett Jones Business Law Talks podcast that discusses topics around navigating the complexities of the family enterprise. I'm Leah Tolton, partner at Bennett Jones LLP, and I'm a family enterprise and corporate lawyer, passionate about helping family enterprise businesses navigate the complexities of governance, succession, and growth. Before we begin this podcast, please note that anything said or discussed on this podcast does not constitute legal advice. Always seek proper advice from your legal advisor, as every situation is different and outcomes can vary. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Sandra Pollack, a thought leader in family enterprise advising and author of the book, Don't Leave a Mess: How to Disaster-Proof Your Family Legacy. Sandra specializes in estate planning and family business transition and brings a wealth of experience in helping business owners and their families confront some of the most difficult yet essential conversations about the future of their enterprises. In her book, Sandra shares a powerful insight. Silence is often the root cause of the messes left behind in family enterprises. Together, we'll talk about why these silences occur, how business owners can break the silence, and the best practices for planning smooth transitions that honor both the business and the family behind it. Welcome, Sandra, to the podcast.
Thank you, Leah. It is truly a pleasure to be here today.
Great. So let's get started. As I mentioned, your book has really quite a catchy title, Don't Leave a Mess: How to Disaster-Proof Your Family Legacy. And, I'd like to just build on that title and ask you, what, in your experience, is a common root cause of the messes that are left by family enterprise owners?
There's many, but the real, I would say, number one underlying factor would be lack of communication, which I call the price of silence. And that is when the business owner, usually the one who has created the wealth, doesn't want to talk about it and doesn't want to share what is going on with his business, with the various components of his family business enterprise, because of perhaps an unhealthy money script. And we all have what are called money scripts. I read a book about this, and it's, what is our relationship to money growing up? So for example, did we talk about it at the kitchen table? Did our parents not talk about it? Did our parents say to talk about money is rude? So we think that if we talk about our wealth, it's rude. And understanding that money is not a bad thing. If you really have a deep conversation with someone who wants to be open and discuss, and you ask them what's important to you about money, and you dig really deep into what that meaning is, it is more than just the dollars. It is more than the lifestyle. It's financial security. It's financial independence. It's legacy for their families, legacy for perhaps charity that they want to support or that touches their heart because of something that's happened in their world. And I think that once people understand that the conversation about money isn't about stuff, but it's about values, not so much the valuables, that level of comfort becomes a little less awkward to discuss. Once you've got your head around that, and I still am working with a lot of successful entrepreneurs that look at their net worth, and it could be anywhere from 10 million to 250 million. And they say, that's not me. And I say, no, that's not you, but it's something that you own. It's kind of like saying that car is not me and that house or that cottage is not me. Absolutely, it's not you, but it's something that you have built or that you own, and you have to care for it. Because if you don't care for it, and if you don't ask yourself what you want to do with it, and 9.9 times out of 10, when I deal with business owners, the reason why they become business owners often is because they're unemployable. They do things their own way. They come up with a better idea that nobody wants to listen to. They solve a better solution, or they make a better mousetrap. And so they have the courage to go out on their own and create something. And as a result of what they create, they employ many people. Not only do they put food on the table for their family, because that's, number one, but they end up feeding many families. And I say this because we do not give enough homage to our Canadian and North American and actually worldwide entrepreneurs, in the sense that when they employ someone, they generate something in the economy, because that employee or that person they've engaged goes to the grocery store and buys something, and that money that's being used to buy groceries creates employment in the grocery store. And it's this chain effect that really contributes to a robust economy. So quite often they don't realize the impact of what I would say their guts are, their courage to build a business, and yet it can have huge repercussions if because of lack of planning. And when I say lack of planning, I'm talking about proper planning, wills, trusts, life insurance, pensions, putting it all together. It could create a disaster, and in many cases can bankrupt and close a business. Because in the estate planning world, when you look at your wills, if you have one, it usually says, I authorize or instruct my executor to pay off my taxes, number one, pay my creditors number two, and the rest distribute accordingly. And yet, if you ask any business owner, what do they want to do with the wealth that they've created? They say, number one, take care of my loved ones. Take care of my family. Number two, if I owe anybody money, make sure that they're paid, because, no debt should live longer than the individual who created it. And thirdly, pay my taxes. But it doesn't work that way. It's the actual reverse. So having the courage to start a conversation about values, about money, and understanding that wealth enables a person to do more than just acquire things, and it can enhance opportunities for their children. It can help in hospitals and charitable organizations. I mean, there's so much that it can do that all of a sudden we can move from a place of fear where we don't want to talk about dying to a place where we can talk really about aspirational thinking.
Yeah. So, I mentioned in the introduction to this episode that one of the nuggets that comes from your book is that, silence is the root of a lot of these messes that you describe. And, you've touched in your comments here about values. I wonder if you can speak to why it is that you think that family enterprise owners remain silent, whether, that's because they don't want to communicate or because they're not clear on their values. Why do they remain silent when the stakes are so high for the family, for the enterprise they built, for all the people who depend on that, and all those spin-off effects you're talking about?
I sincerely believe there is a discomfort about the topic of death. People are afraid. They are fearful that they don't want to come to grips with the fact that the only thing that I can be 100% certain of when we deal with our clients' estate planning and family business transition planning is death is 100% certain. And I tell my clients that. I can't tell you the date, but I can tell you that. I can't tell you if your investments are going to go up or down or what the exact value is, if your business is going to continue to flourish over the next 25 years, but I can tell you with certainty. And I think that we have a fear of coming to grips with our own mortality. It takes discernment, it takes compassion, and it takes empathy to bring that conversation to the forefront so that these families can have comfort saying, okay, if I plan for it, because if you don't plan for it, it does create a disaster. And as I mentioned, Leah, in the beginning, is business owners are very independent minded and creative heroes. I call them my heroes. And so they are always thinking about opportunities. And death doesn't look like an opportunity for anyone. Does it look like an opportunity for you? I mean, let's talk about the death opportunity. However, they're also quite controlling when it comes to making decisions, and they want to make their own decisions. And the fact is that if they don't have the courage, and I say it takes courage, to talk about this eventuality, then everything that they've built up and everything they've controlled will go out of control and will end up being, in a situation where the government wants their taxes, the people that owe them money want to get paid, the employees want to get paid, your competitors are circling around, people that owe you money disappear, and the people in your life that you want to care for are the last person on the, call it the food chain, that get anything if you don't have the courage to plan for this. And it's complicated. Let's be very frank here. Wills are not the way they used to be written. Wills are written in legalese that can be very intimidating. You have the right professional to translate it. And I mean, you would know that better than I, because when you ask an estate lawyer, why is this legalese there? They say, because we want to make it litigation proof. Could you imagine? They're expecting litigation. So,
yeah. Oh, yes, I can. Oh, yes, I can. Yeah.
They're expecting litigation. So if you are an entrepreneur and you love paying legal fees and you love paying court fees and you love everybody knowing your business, because once this gets to court, it's public, then don't plan. Don't write a will. Don't do anything. And all of a sudden, your whole life will be a lie, because everything that you've built up and the control and the imagination and making the right decisions will all go down, will go down a drain because of not having the courage to have a conversation about how do I set up a plan properly based on what I want to see happen, what my priorities are, my values, my hopes, and my dreams for my family, my business, my partners.
Yeah. So, you've hit on an important point there. And in my role, I'm often called on to advise business owners when they're talking about these plans. They're working on a plan to structure how ownership will look or to transition ownership of their family enterprise. And, that I'm a corporate lawyer. So, as I say, I work on the plans of people who are still alive, but you're absolutely right. Key component of those plans is often the documents that deal with what happens on their death. So they really do need to speak together. And there's a lot of complexity involved in what should go into any of those documents. Can you talk about the challenges that you see in the planning part? The documents will come together once the plan is done. Can you talk about some of the challenges you see in planning for a transition of ownership that can lead to those messes down the line, regardless of what form those agreements take?
Okay, there's a couple of factors. The first factor is that when you take risks and when you are successful, we all have to pay taxes. And any business owner complains about paying taxes. They go, oh, again, I've paid payroll tax, I've paid this tax, I've paid that tax, I've paid property tax, I've paid income tax, and I've got to pay corporate tax. So they really would like to know how they can arrange their affairs tax effectively and tax efficiently. And they will do anything and everything to have some kind of, I don't want to call it a scheme, but I would say a structure that will help them save taxes. And that will catch their attention automatically. Taxes will. So what I see happen is that you go to your accountant or you go to your lawyer and ask them, make me something to save taxes. But they realize that, that the tail is wagging the dog, because your wife is not a tax deduction. Your kid is not a tax deduction. What is it that you want to achieve? What are your priorities as it pertains to your family relationships? Perhaps you have a child with special needs. Mm-hmm. Perhaps you have a child who has been divorced, or a child who is not very responsible with money or has a low level of financial fluency. So what are these issues? And mm-hmm. then we can talk about mm-hmm. what it is that you want, and then look at the tax. And I often see where they set up a structure without any connection to the family issues, the family dynamics, and the fact that a family is a system, right? So that's number one. The other issue that I see that crops up is lack of what I would call collaboration among professionals, and whether it's life insurance, estate planning, investments, legal, accounting, that usually they look at working in their silos and they like each other and they get along with each other, but they don't share information that can have a significant bearing on a plan that could make it totally inappropriate for the wealth holder. And I think that the difference between collaboration and cooperation is when I'm nice to everybody and everybody's nice to me on the advisory team. Collaboration is when we actually work together and learn, and we take our egos, our professional egos, and we ever so gently put them in our back pocket so that we can learn and understand, because perhaps an initial recommendation isn't suitable because of a development that's happened in the family or a development that's happened in the industry. Take tariffs, for example, which seems to be the buzz these days. How does that impact a business and a family business enterprise that has many different businesses or components? So I think collaboration is something that we need to do more of in an advisory way. And there needs to be one person who can keep the ball moving and keep the ball in motion. And some people call that a quarterback. I call it more of a coach, and it's a coach with the client as well as the other advisors, so that we have deadlines, that we have accountability, and we can actually get things done.
Got it. So the challenge then is that people or professionals, including both of them in this comment, may look at this from too narrow a perspective, and perhaps there are a broader range of things that should be considered in putting together the plan. And if the broader range of things is considered and factored into the plan, then perhaps that will lead to fewer messes down the line.
Yeah, I think you've summed it up, Leah. And the other thing is that each of us in our own respective professions have what I call professional bias, right? So I look at it always from a risk and liquidity point of view in the world that I'm at, because I've seen where businesses have had to be sold because there was not sufficient liquidity to pay estate taxes. A lawyer will look at it more from an organizational point of view, a tax point of view, perhaps a creditor protection. An accountant might look at it from tax. An investment advisor might look at it as in terms of increasing the value of the portfolio, which may or may not be tax efficient depending on whether it's corporately held or personally held. And I think that we all have our biases. We have to recognize them and be open to suggesting that maybe this isn't the right recommendation given the current set of facts and the priorities of the client.
Right. So based on those comments and your response to my previous question, it seems that these challenges that could lead to messes could be viewed from a number of different angles. And you referred to having the role of a coach, of someone who will coordinate and who will create accountability and structure for that collaborative team. Is it typical that you would get to one response, or could there be a choice of options or structures that might work for a client that they might have to think about and consider?
Well, I think when you're building your advisory team, Leah, it really depends on that right fit individual. And I think that there are 4 qualities that you're looking for if you want that person to move the ball along to completion. That person has to be, besides having a profession, being good in whatever respective profession they practice in, I believe they have to be alert, they have to be resourceful, they have to be responsive, right? Getting stuff done. And they have to care. They have to care. And we are so overwhelmed sometimes. That sense of empathy is so integral. And it takes, and not everybody wants it. Not everybody wants to, I have some professionals that say, Sandy, really, all I want to worry about is the financial statements, the performance of the business, guiding the client. You want to get into the other factors, fabulous, and then tell me what I need to do.
Yeah.
I think that that's good. At least you know what you know. I've had situations where I've actually taken an accountant and a lawyer out for lunch to talk about some issues in the family that they were not aware of.
Right.
And all of a sudden they went, oh my God, now I understand why he's not proceeding with this particular strategy or with this tactic or this tool. And often we work around it. And I recall one situation, which was a client that was contemplating putting a family trust. And he was so reticent. He was so reticent because of the situation with, second marriage. And, it can get a little complex, the second and third marriages. The accountant was a phenomenal accountant. The lawyer was phenomenal. He's talking about spousal trusts and all these things. And as soon as he mentioned spousal trust, my client got a little wiggly in his chair, because that meant that, leave everything to your wife number 3. And then when she dies, your kids will collect it. And that's not what he wanted. Especially, we're on to marriage number 3. So we went out for lunch and I said, think of it as a seesaw. There's control, right? And then there's tax.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can leave a little tax, leak out the tax a bit when they die. You could use life insurance to cover the tax.
Yeah.
Put a little more flexibility in the trust. So the spousal trust was nixed. Okay, they established a family trust, but we also looked at all his assets, both personal and corporate, and we're able to look at it in terms of what percentage he was leaving to his 4 children versus his spouse. And he really wanted to make it somewhat equal, 20%, so that it didn't look to his third wife that everything was being left to the kids. And we actually helped him comprise a letter to his spouse and a letter to his 4 children as to what his lifetime, which he wasn't comfortable in sharing, the struggles that he had coming to Canada and starting with very little. And then also telling his third wife that how much important she was in his life and how much she loved him and why he did his will this way so that there wouldn't be estate litigation. And, no accountant, no lawyer, no financial advisor even suggested it. And I put this away, and this is just a placeholder because the will that you've created today will more likely be revised in 5 to 8 years than not, because tax legislation changes, relationships evolve, and sure enough,
your
family situations evolve, and sure enough, what was relevant 7 or 8 years ago might not be relevant today. And that's another thing, is making sure that there is a review when there is a change in a personal or business situation.
So you refer to a couple of interesting tools in your book. You talk about a family business playbook, and you've also got a list in your book that you refer to allowing people, or if you use it, it would allow people to sort out the pieces of the puzzle. You talk about a puzzle, you talk about a playbook. Can you speak a bit about how those tools might be effective in order to get people clear on what it is they want to accomplish and how they share their wishes with their professional advisors so we can come up with the best possible result?
That's a two.
Start with the playbook and how we could work with that.
So let's start with the business playbook. So the business playbook is, what happens if I don't wake up this morning? What happens if I get hit by a Mack truck and they don't peel me off and send me to the hospital and fix me up, but basically I am not around anymore? What happens to your business? What do you want to see happen to your family? Are there family members involved? And so asking good questions to what happens if and who should they go to, all of a sudden makes the business owner understand that although he is the puppeteer, right, managing everything, when he is not around, it's important to have a replacement. Just like when you go to New York and you go to a Broadway show, there's an understudy. Well, a business needs an understudy. It might need a few understudies. When you think about the whole cast, I'm just thinking about that at the top of my head. But I think it's important to realize that you have to ask yourself, who will take care of this? Identify those key people, what their roles are. Are there ways that I can assure that we can keep them, right? And we can talk about strategies, like I call them golden handcuffs or velvet handcuffs for some key people. So maybe they understand that they're compensated and they don't hit the exit buttons. Are there family members that need to be groomed? Is there a family business rule book on, compensation, exiting? We help our clients design those based on their values and visions and how they want to see things happen. How do they prepare their heirs for the wealth? Lottery winners, that statistic about lottery winners is so true. If they don't have the tools, usually it does end up getting dissipated in a very short period of time. So that's on the business side, to make sure that you have an exit plan, not just if you retire, but an exit plan if you involuntarily retire because you're no longer around. So that's number one. Then there's the stuff, which is the holdings and the wealth and everything. And that is what I call a family desk reference that we have designed for our clients. And that's the list of important things. Who's my lawyer? Who's my accountant? Who's my doctor? Where is the ownership, the title or deed of the house? Where are my insurance policies? Where's all this stuff? Who's our investment advisor? Who are our key people? So that you don't have somebody going through files, whether it's paper files or going through computer files. And I've seen this happen more often than not knowing where the password is. And then all of a sudden you're locked out. So I think that there's two things. If it's a family business enterprise, it is very important for the business owner to have that kind of disaster plan just in case and review it because people come on and people come off. And then on the estate planning, a family desk reference. So, and it doesn't have to be 100% complete, but if 80% of the things are there, my goodness, the grief, when you lose a family member,
Yeah.
grief is something that we are not prepared for. And everybody that I have met, every human being that I have met that has had a loss, their grief journey has been so unique that you can't just say, oh, there's the 5 stages of Kubler, whatever. No, that's not grief. Grief comes in waves. Grief can be numbing. Grief can be unprepared. I had one client who passed away and his spouse said to me, it was in a partnership, am I not getting a paycheck deposited into the bank account? Is his paycheck stopping? She had no idea. She thought even though he was an owner of a business, he should continue to get his paycheck, not understanding that there were millions coming to this individual for the value of the business. And this person was going to receive a check in the millions, but that's not what she wanted. She just wanted the reassurance of paycheck to paycheck that's going into the joint account. So it's, you really have to look at it two-pronged, and there's a complexity threshold. Lastly, I'll mention this, is that as we journey through life and when we're young, Leah, we can handle lots of things, corporations, holdings, trusts. But as we journey, what I'm seeing demographically is this shift to, okay, so we pay a little tax, but how do I make things simpler? Elegant simplicity, and elegant simplicity requires strong collaboration among your professional advisors. And the fees that you pay will more than offset the taxes, the family relationships that are broken, the litigation and court costs. I think people have to realize that sometimes professional fees are an investment and not expense. With the right professionals, and they are your partner. And I think that sometimes some people become so fee sensitive and they look at it as not wisdom or advice. And maybe it's because they're not with the right professionals. I don't know. But I think it behooves me that if you have the right people at your planning table, it truly is an investment of simplicity, peace of mind, saving taxes, and most importantly, family clarity and harmony.
Right. So what is the one thought that you would like to leave with people today?
I want people to think of their planning with the following question. Okay. And we're going to change one word to another. When is the best time, Leah, to plant a tree?
No.
20 years ago.
Well,
right. So when is the best time to start your planning? It's not necessarily when you have millions of dollars in the bank account. It's 20 years ago. And if you haven't done it 20 years ago, then let's get it done today.
Right.
And that is the one thought that I would encourage people to think about, to have the courage to pick up the phone, even if you're not sure where, just to call one advisor that you feel you can trust, that you feel is competent, that you believe cares about you, so that you can at least start. It's kind of like Monopoly. You're at the go, and then you roll the dice. Well, go to go and collect your $200.
Yeah.
Go to go and start your plan.
Right. So, one of the questions I was going to ask you, and I know I said that was the last thought, but this I think ties in with this point is, when is the best time for family enterprise owners to break the silence? And I think the answer would be 20 years ago or 10 years ago or 5 years ago. And when's the best time? If you didn't do it then, it's now. And what I often say to people is, I don't want you to get overwhelmed with how many of these complex legal pieces there are to fit together, including all of the insurance and tax and investment things that you've talked about. But, what I say to them is very similar to what you say to them, which is just start. Start somewhere with someone and we'll figure out how all those pieces fit together. So I think, you and I would have the same closing comment to make to people.
I would agree. It's too bad that we don't live in the same city because we're doing a lot of work together.
Yeah. Oh, well, maybe in the future we'll find a way to make that happen.
Fabulous.
Sandy, it's been a pleasure to speak with you today. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your insight with us. I will remind our listeners that your book is entitled Don't Leave a Mess, How to Disaster-Proof Your Family Legacy, available on Amazon. That's where I got my copy. And I'm sure that if you found this podcast interesting, you will find even greater depth of insight in the book, and I commend it to you. Thanks so much, Sandy.
You are most welcome. Thank you, Leah.
Thanks for joining me on this episode of Beyond Succession, a series within the Bennett Jones Business Law Talks podcast. Make sure to hit the follow button on whatever platform you are listening from so you get notified whenever we release new episodes. Also, don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions about challenges or issues that you are facing in your family enterprise. Take care. I'll catch you in our next episode.